Hello there, and thank you for joining us on our first ever video cast featuring best practices for on-premise to cloud-based telephony migration strategy. Over the next 45 minutes or so, my team is going to walk you through some of the best practices that we've witnessed over the years as more and more of our clients are making the shift from on-premise telephony to a cloud-based solution. So, what is going to be covered in this video cast? Well, we're going to start off by information about pulling the contracts, a very important step in the process. Move on to prepping the network. And then we're going to talk about best practice number 3, which is pulling the people. Number 4 is my favorite, pray for the port. And lastly, I'm going to circle back to close it out with picking your partner. So that's the agenda. Never done this before, so I hope you like it. And if at any point during the process you have questions, which is the only reason you need to be on a webinar, right? Send those questions to info@mtrx.com, and we'll be sure to answer them as soon as possible. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and let us know if you have any questions. Cheers.
What I mean by poll the users is gather information about what your users will need on this new communication platform in order to do their job well. So start this conversation early because it's going to come into play when you start having conversations with solution providers. Not having this information ready to go would cause delays in the buying process. Having inaccurate information is going to bring frustration to your users when they don't get what they expected. And then that ends up costing more money anyway in post-implementation. So, all right, what type of information am I talking about when I say gather information? I'm talking about phone types, talking about headset types, software needs, faxing needs, overhead paging, door phone requirements, call flow needs, those sorts of things. So examples would be find out who needs a hard phone, who needs a soft phone, how many buttons are needed on those hard phones. Find out if the headsets you do have connect just to the desk phones or do they also connect to the PC for use with soft phones. If you're doing things like video conferencing, what's the max number of participants that you're going to need on a single conference? You know, is anyone doing large webinars like sales or marketing? Find out the number of users or phones that don't need any software at all. All they care about is having a phone that rings, and that will help make sure that you don't over-engineer the solution. Find out who has fax IDs they need to keep. Find out if there's any departments doing anything really weird or special with call flow and that you're going to need to replicate on the new system. And the point is, if all you're doing is giving basically to a solution provider, like, hey, number of users, give me a quote for 50 users, give me a quote for 100 users, you're going to get a proposal that is not tailored to your business. It could either be over-engineered, which adds unnecessary cost, or under-engineered, which frustrates end users and management because they migrate and then they feel like it's a downgrade instead of an upgrade. So do your homework here. That helps avoid those two pitfalls. And then when it comes to the actual implementation, this will help because you're going to use something, fill out something called a user cut sheet. I'll share an example right here. So this is just an example of a very simple user cut sheet. You're going to be needing to put in information for programming, DID numbers, extensions, names, locations, departments, all those sorts of things, going up to what type of phone everyone's getting, what type of license everyone's getting, who's getting eFax, and all those sorts of things. So if you have this information in advance, then it'll save you time in the long run, make implementation a breeze, and if you want to use the spreadsheet as a template, you can. We'll just email us at clientsuccess@mtrx.com. We'll send it your way. It helps you get a head start on the project. So how do you easily gather this information? My suggestion is poll the users. You may already have some of this information in a report that you're pulling from the phone system or something like that. I wouldn't trust it 100%. Don't make assumptions. Your phone system may tell you that you've got 150 extensions and that you need 150 extensions. So you might only need 125. If your phone system's old, it has old programming in there. And things like you may think that your sales team is the only team that needs video conferencing, but really HR needs video conferencing to do interviews remotely and things like that. So start with a blank slate, ask lots of questions of every department, and they'll appreciate that you're trying to help them improve the way they work by getting them the right tools. So as far as actually polling your users, you might benefit from some sort of digital survey. So I've got an example I can show you. I made this survey pretty quickly on Microsoft Forms. You could do the same in Google Forms, or if this comes included with Office 365. And it's a simple survey that I wrote that has 5 sections. And it's basically a way to gather this information quickly um, and then put it automatically into some charts and spreadsheets and whatnot. So I'm asking questions about phone type needs. Do you already have a physical phone? Do you need or prefer a certain type of phone over another? Find out who's going to be okay with a soft phone, for example. And this might be a good chance to say that you might need to do some education on this. People sometimes think they can't imagine their life without a phone on their desk, when in reality, a soft phone would be something they would love. They'd see a lot of benefits of. It'd be easier and cleaner, but they just need to know what it is, and you might need some education on what it is and what the benefits are. So happy to help with that. Just feel free to ask. You're going to want to know who needs a headset and how many you have and what it connects to and doesn't connect to, and if it's compatible with the soft phones that you're purchasing. You're going to want to ask questions about phone numbers, fax DIDs. Sometimes it's surprising how many people have DIDs out there for faxing. You didn't realize they were even faxing still. Find out if there's any phone numbers that your people are aware of that you might not be, that you want to make sure you port over. Ask about software needs. Ask about what people are needing to do their job in terms of they really need SMS or they really need video conferencing. Voicemail transcription might be a plus. And then you find out, oh, we should actually be asking for those things and making sure we get licensing types that include those features. Ask some open-ended questions at the end that give you some clarity on okay, what are the biggest complaints they have? You may already know that. They probably send you help desk tickets, but maybe you'll get some new things here that help just justify this project as a good reason of why you're upgrading. And then they might give you some wish list items. And if you can follow through on solving their challenges and giving them a few wish list items, you're going to come across as a big hero for this project. So once you have this information, you can sort it in. It automatically puts it in these responses here. So you can find out, okay, how many people I got in my sample data. 6 people want a soft phone, but 3 of them don't have a headset, and 2 of them have a headset that only connects to the desk phone. So you need to buy 5 more headsets. Down here, you're going to see what the most popular software feature requests are. So people really want the mobile app. People really want voicemail transcription. Make sure that your licensing includes those features. So this is just an example. I can share this template with you if you feel like it'd be helpful to get a head start on these sorts of things. And all you got to do is send an email to clientsuccess@mtrx.com. Let me know that it would be helpful. We'll send it your way. So that's what I have on best practice number 3 to help you prepare for your cloud phone migration.
In today's video, we are going to be covering contracts and how to properly document them. Organization and detail are the key to keeping track of all aspects of your contracts. The best way I've found to do this is by creating a detailed spreadsheet that includes many of the important items. Most of these items can be obtained by calling the current carrier, requesting a copy of the CSR, customer service record, or from a copy of the bill. Documenting the above details will not only allow you to know when exactly the contracts expire, but also give you a great head start on the porting process. Here's an example of a spreadsheet I like to use to document contracts. Column A covers the provider. This is who's providing service to you and your business. Column B is the account name. This account name needs to match exactly what is on the CSR and the bill. Account number. You may have multiple account numbers depending on how many service providers you have. Phone number and circuit ID. This is the phone number or the circuit ID if it's an internet circuit. BTN number. BTN stands for billing telephone number. On most accounts, like with PRIs, there's usually one main billing telephone number that covers all the numbers on the PRI, the service address. You may have multiple service addresses on your bill if your bill is consolidated. Please take note of each service address. This needs to be exact. Contract expiration date. These are usually not listed on the bill or the CSR. Usually this requires a quick call to the carrier to find out if you have a contract and when it expires. The PIN number or security code. This number is sometimes used by carriers to provide an additional layer of security, either a 4-digit, 6-digit number, or it's sometimes a passphrase. Authorized signer. In order to port your phone numbers, you need to know who the authorized signer is on the account. This could be one person or this could be multiple people. Designated use. I like to just keep track of who owns the number, what the number is used for, if it's assigned to a particular person, if it's a main number, if it's a fax line, and such. Other notes, any other key notes about this item? If it's a MEL, which stands for Market Expansion Line, sometimes these numbers come into effect if your business has moved over the years and you could not bring your old original phone number over to the new rate center where the business now resides. If you'd like a copy of the spreadsheet that I shared today, please reach out and contact us via the link on our website. Thank you.
My name is Jeremy Ness. I'm the CTO at Matrix Networks, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to prepare your network for a cloud-based phone system. We're going to cover everything from the actual physical cabling all the way up to firewall, internet circuits, and possible SD-WAN options to make the whole process smoother. So, and starting with cabling, really kind of two starting points. If you have an IP-based phone system today, you're probably just fine. Oftentimes, if there's a current IP deployed system, there's going to be a one-for-one swap of phones. We do get into the part about talking about switches, the network switches and VLANs and things of that nature. There's a whole other set of considerations if you currently have a phone system deployed or IP-based phone system deployed. However, on the cabling, you're probably going to be fine. If you are coming from a digital-based phone system or one that typically uses Cat3 cable on the walls, there's a good chance you're going to need to recable some of the cable drops. So first you're saying, hey, Jeremy, how do I know if I have an IP-based phone system? Well, there should be a network cable out of the back. Good chance your PC is behind it. If you have digital, a hallmark of that is you'll have a phone room. You'll have some big old, generally kind of metal cabinets on the wall. They're going to have some big old 25 pair grade cables out of those. And from there, you're going to have some 66 blocks, little white blocks on the wall. And there'll be some more white blocks that go out to existing phones. And there's going to be a whole mess of jumpers and essentially a big spaghetti mess. So that's how you know if you have a digital phone system. So things to take into account is, again, if you have a bunch of Cat3 cables out, those are not certifiable and will not work on any modern computer network. Modern networks are gigabit speed. Cat3, you can get maybe 10 megabit over a short distance. So again, no computer or phone is going to work over that Cat3 cable. So with that, you do need to evaluate what drops need to be pulled with Cat5e or newer cable. If you have a phone next to existing PC or an existing network drop, you can utilize that. Do keep in mind that you can daisy chain any existing phone or any existing PC behind any new phone. So if you get a new IP-based phone, you can then plug the network cable and adapt from the wall and then the PC behind there. So really the areas you need to look at are any areas on network cable close, which are oftentimes common area phones, being lobby phones, your lunchroom phones, oftentimes in a warehouse. You have many phones in the warehouse. So with those, you need to work with a cable contractor or through Matrix Networks. We can get you in touch with ones that we like to work with to go through and pull in the new cables that we needed to support the new IP-based phones. Next thing we need to look at when deploying an IP-based phone system is the network switches. So again, if you currently have an IP phone system deployed, the model of the network switch is probably going to be fine, and the feature set of the network switch should be fine also. Again, if you're coming from a digital phone, you will need to look at your switches and see if they will support IP-based phones. First thing to look at is managed versus unmanaged. So we must have managed phones, or excuse me, managed switches. Managed switches essentially mean they have a programming interface on them, some kind of admin interface. So oftentimes they're going to have a web-based interface or some possibly kind of SSH interface to manage the switches. Inherently with a managed switch comes a lot of the feature set that is needed to support voice across the network, being VLANs, quality of service, things of that nature. So first we need to make sure we have a managed switch. All right, so you do, check, awesome. Next thing you need to know is, does it have PoE, power over Ethernet? This is a mechanism to power a phone off of a network cable. So the network switch becomes the power source, and again, provides power over to a phone. Oftentimes, I do not see PoE switches in a digital phone environment because there's just no need for them. The only other devices that generally use PoE are going to be access points and cameras. And oftentimes, if you're just deploying a few access points, you just deploy a switch specifically for that, to where a lot of the other switches in the environment might not have PoE or power Ethernet. So again, that's another really important thing to look at. So say, hey, Jeremy, we have managed switches. We have PoE. Awesome. From there, you are good to go, at least with the equipment necessary. So now we get into actual programming of the switches and best practices around how to set up those switches to support voice. So let's say we have our switch here. And we have some endpoints, being phones down there. So best practice is to set up this network switch. At this point, it's very similar to IP-based phone systems. So again, if you have IP-based phone system, probably going to follow the same general rule of thumb here. So first, VLANs. It's going to be a virtual LAN, for those not familiar with the acronym. Essentially what that is it takes a single logical network switch and splits it up into essentially in multiple LANs or multiple networks. It allows us to segment the voice from the rest of the data. That does several things for us. One of the big ones is makes it much easier to apply QoS, or quality of service. What that does is anything in that voice VLAN will automatically have a quality of service bit set. So what does that look like? So not an art major here, so don't mind the drawings, but let's say we have a PC here and a phone here. Also in our network, let's say we have a file server over here. So without segmentation and a quality of service, say this PC wants to download a bunch of data off of, oh, that's pretty, download a bunch of data off that file server, there's a good chance that it's going to saturate the ports on the network switch, being here and here. With that saturation, we can start dropping packets. The last thing we want to do is drop any voice packets, right? That's going to give a really poor phone experience. So what quality of service does is if there's any congestion in the network switch, it'll prioritize those voice packets and move them in front of any other data if there is any congestion on the network. So things to take into account. If you currently do have an IP phone system, you probably, hopefully, have this set up, that set up. If you don't, now's a great time to look at that. There's a good chance those will be set up specifically for your old phone system. So when setting up these two systems side by side, a lot of consideration needs to be taken. If a phone actually gets put in, a newer phone gets put in that VLAN, there's a chance it won't be able to talk to the internet or won't have the correct quality service set. So again, that's something that we help our clients with all the time, is if cutting between a new and an old system. Other things we like to see on modern switches is you can set up the VLANs and the quality of service automatically. However, the newest and most modern switches are going to have a voice VLAN that takes care of a lot of that heavy lifting already. So I would say you should always look at your switch, and does it have a voice VLAN option? Really under the covers, that means it's utilizing LLDP, or Link Layer Discovery Protocol. It really helps hopping that phone into the correct VLAN. If you have other switches or switches that do not support a voice VLAN, with that you're going to have to use some other mechanism. Oftentimes see de-shipping scope options being set, or a config file on a FTP server. So this really depends on what type of or model of phone you're looking at. So these are all things to take into account when setting up your switch, is what type of phones and what feature set does your network switch have that is capable of maybe making life easier with that VLAN and quality of service settings. All right, so here we have our endpoints. There's some phones down there. We have our network switch. So the next piece of equipment on our journey here is the firewall. So out of the network switch, we're going to have a firewall. So there are a lot of things to take into account in the firewall, right? So really up to this point, if you had an existing voice VLAN, really from here to here is generally the same, right? Plug the phone in, it would talk to your network switch, then probably talk to some voice controller on site. While when we're introducing a cloud-hosted phone system, obviously, that's going to live on the internet and it's going to leave your environment. So now we need to extend what would traditionally be that QoS and VLAN environment all the way up to and actually past the firewall. So with that firewall, there are several things to take into account. One is you do want a real firewall. If you do have an ISP that provides a piece of equipment, it's really going to be more of a NATing router than a firewall. We do not recommend that. Is not best practice. Best practice is going to have a real enterprise-grade firewall. There's several reasons for that. We'll get to kind of touched on. We do want to extend that quality service up to the firewall and through the firewall as far as prioritization of the voice. Another one is troubleshooting. Most enterprise-grade firewalls are going to have some kind of packet capture mechanism, which was really a really important tool for us to be able to troubleshoot voice on our clients' networks, right? And nothing says source of truth really like that pure packet capture. So again, first thing we want is we want a real firewall. Again, I can't stress that enough. If you're going through a consumer-grade firewall or a more ISP given device or a consumer-grade firewall, right? If your firewall comes from Best Buy, probably not going to work as well as you want. Another reason we need oftentimes need a firewall is with these VLANs being, again, we kind of keep track here. We have a data VLAN, and now we introduce a voice VLAN. Well, we do need some kind of layer 3 device to route between those. Some clients have a core switch that's layer 3, but oftentimes we find a lot of our clients end up having to route that on the firewall. No consumer grade or ISP firewall is going to be able to even route those VLANs. So again, a lot of things here. I can't stress enough that we do really need to utilize a real enterprise grade firewall for any cloud-based phone system. So on that firewall, on the switch, we talked about VLANs and QoS. On the firewall, there are several things we need to take into account. Let's go ahead and just continue with the QoS. So one thing we do need to enable on your firewall is the ability to honor that QoS or the quality service tags. So all these packets are going to be leaving the phone with the tag on them. Once they hit the firewall also needs to know, hey, if there's any saturation out on the internet, any saturation on that LAN port, then we do want to prioritize that voice traffic. So not all firewalls can honor QoS or quality of service tags. But don't worry, there is a workaround. All cloud-hosted IP phone vendors do publish their IP subnets. So they'll publish, hey, here's the IP blocks that we utilize. And what you can do is you can enter rules in your firewall based on those. That will then do prioritization based on the destination IP. So when a phone tries to reach out to a call control server or anything of that nature by the cloud-hosted vendor, any traffic going to that destination will automatically be prioritized. So it's really your two options is, hey, if the firewall can just take the quality service, awesome. Otherwise, we need to do it on the IP subnets. Other settings we need to worry about once we have taken care of that quality of service is there are some settings that can sabotage us in the firewall for that cloud-based phone traffic. The biggest culprit is SIP-ALG, or Session Initiation Protocol Application Layer Gateway. This is actually a fairly old holdover from days when SIP was unable to traverse a NAT. Again, more acronyms here, Network Address Translation. So very early SIP devices we're really unable to go from a private IP out to a public IP and back. So firewall vendors introduced the SIP ALG feature, which actually go in and modify the packets to allow them to traverse NAT. We're way past that point of needing to do that for generally all SIP-based trunking or IP phones, as we're talking about today. However, that feature is still enabled by default on most routers that we see today. So again, that's going to sabotage you. Disable that. Other options that we need to potentially look at is any security options. So if your firewall does have UTM or Unified Threat Management features, being our IPS IDS, being intrusion prevention and intrusion detection, other things like gateway antivirus, or UDP packet flooding, all of these things can interfere with voice traffic. So at a minimum, they should be disabled for that voice VLAN, and you can maintain those on that existing data VLAN. Also, another thing that's best practice is any outbound firewall rules. Really, best practice is to disable any outbound rules for that voice VLAN. For compliance reasons or just a security posture environment, if those do need to be enabled even on the voice VLAN, again, much like the IP subnets being advertised by the cloud hosted vendors, they'll have a known ports list. They even have you can use that in conjunction with the subnets list to lock down the specific subnets and ports for the voice VLAN if you need that voice environment to be even more secure out of the box. All right, so now we have quality of service from our phone through our switch to our firewall. We have the voice VLAN. We've gone through our firewall. We've disabled any settings that might sabotage us. In the SIP ALG and security services. We've gone in and made sure that we have outbound connectivity, being all those IP rules or the outbound firewall rules being cleared. So I'm gonna switch back up here. And we have our firewall. So again, we've established that obviously our voice is living on the internet. So all of a sudden, what's out in front of your firewall up to the SIP vendor becomes extremely important, right? Back when we had our server on-prem, everything was great. It was all on our network switch. I can touch our firewall, never even touch the internet. Now we're hitting our firewall and the internet. So there are definitely a few steps we consider as best practice to continue really that quality service or that guaranteeing of voice being able to traverse the internet and still work correctly. So first big one is oftentimes we find that a lot of our clients have a single ISP. Obviously it becomes a single point of failure. If your ISP is having a bad day, then your voice experience, your voice quality, and your phone system in general is going to be having a bad day. We do like to always kind of have a joke here that everybody seems entitled to the God-given right to dial tone, right? So you're going to pick up the handset, better work, and I want a good experience while I'm on the phone. So we highly recommend having two different ISPs from different carriers over different mediums. Being, I want two different ISPs, and I want that delivered over two different, physical, either fiber, coax, DSL, LT if you need to, satellite if you really, really need to. But really, we find a fiber coax or a coax DSL or some mix of those is going to be your best. Again, I don't want a fiber and a DSL from the same carrier. Obviously, the last miles are going to be different. They're going to be commingled at some point, down the way in their carrier IP network. So again, that's really kind of our best rule of thumb there. So now we need to talk a little about how does a firewall utilize those two different circuits. There are several ways we can do load balancing, active passive. We see most of our clients do enable load balancing. Most firewalls can have some kind of algorithm that's going to say, hey, this circuit's this much bandwidth, this circuit's this much bandwidth. How do I want to utilize those circuits? So again, load balancing is going to kind of shape or steer the traffic onto that. So say we have our endpoint down here again, and they do make a phone call. So it comes through here, and let's say the firewall decides to put on that circuit. And we had somebody over here with the phone, and they come up, and the firewall puts them on that circuit. Well, so now we should talk about what is voice calls like or environments it needs on the internet. As far as the bandwidth of those two circuits, so I would say quality over quantity. Each voice call is only about 100K at most, being 1/10 of 1 megabit. Right, so it's very common to have a 100 megabit circuit. A single voice call really, needs 1/10 of 1 megabit. So really, we don't ever see bandwidth being an issue, short of maybe some DSLs at the very end of the loop. So again, we want quality bandwidth. Being if it's 10 meg, then great. What does quality mean? Well, voice likes low latency, low jitter, jitter being out of order packets, and no packet loss. Loss being, hey, I sent a packet out, but it didn't make it to its destination. So now we established the bandwidth necessary and the quality of the circuits. So back to our scenario here of, all right, I have 2 different calls on 2 different circuits. Well, if one of those circuits does start having, latency, right, it taking longer for the packets to get there, or starts having jitter, right? For some reason, when I'm sending packets, they're arriving out of order, or really the worst of the culprits is going to be that packet loss, right? So let's pick on the circuit here. Let's say the packet loss starts going up, right? Maybe we have like a 10% packet loss. At that point, the call is just not going to work, right? Web traffic might work, email doesn't really work. Might have to refresh in your CRM or Office 365 a few times. So it's not gonna be a great web browsing experience, but man, for voice, this is just absolutely a killer. Good chance it's just gonna drop the call. Well, at that point, the firewall might say, oh, hey, that circuit's dead. I'm gonna kill it, but this poor endpoint that had a call going on, it's dead, right? That phone actually needs to reboot, re-register over this different IP address. So again, we've really mitigated having the two. Or having a single point of failure, but we can still be in an environment where we have a really poor call quality experience. Right, this guy's still happy. He thinks everything's fine. This also lead to the help desk getting just sporadic calls that we're having voice quality issues. But hey, are you having issues? No, you're not. So again, just maintaining it is difficult, and we're just not giving a good experience to all of the end users in our environment. So we do have technology to solve this. What we recommend is a cloud-based SD-WAN. So SD-WAN, big marketing buzzword, I won't go into it here, but there are several flavors, and there's one specific flavor that does help cloud-hosted voice, and that's going to be, again, a cloud-focused or internet egress SD-WAN. This is only an appliance you put on site that can sit next to your firewall, in front of your firewall. Again, it comes in many different flavors. Essentially, our 2 internet circuits go into that. Again, we have our endpoint down here. It's going to make a call. It's going to hit the firewall, go to the firewall, hit the SD-WAN appliance. The SD-WAN appliance is actually intelligent, and it knows, hey, which circuit right now is best for the voice, right? It knows about that latency, jitter, packet loss, and available bandwidth you talked about. Might start a call over here, but given the unique technology and capabilities of an SD-WAN appliance, if all of a sudden, again, we do a header, our 10% packet loss, it's actually able to real-time move that call over. No more pointing the finger, hey, are you having an experience? You have an experience, right? If one circuit does start having issues, it can real-time move the call between those 2 different circuits. So really, guaranteeing that good voice quality across the whole path. So to recap, we need to make sure that our cabling is good, right? Again, those digital people, you're mainly the ones I'm looking at here. We need to make sure that we have good Cat5 on the wall. Switches, again, digital people, make sure you have PoE, make sure you have managed switches. If you have an IP phone system already, I'm going to assume that's probably going to be the case. Let's make sure that it's all set up correctly and that any new system that you might deploy just to get ready is not going to conflict with the existing system. Firewall, let's make sure that we keep that quality service all the way up to the firewall, and we disable any settings that might sabotage any voice quality. And lastly, let's make sure that once we do hit the internet, that we do have technology that's going to be able to help steer that call onto the best circuit, and if the circuit does start having issues, we're able to mitigate that real time over to another circuit. So that is it for setting up your network for a cloud-based phone system.
In today's video, we're going to be covering the porting process. Number portability is required to be performed by the local exchange carrier or LEC in accordance with the rules and procedures established by the Federal Communications Commission or FCC. For official information on the porting process, please review the documentation on the FCC website. Based on my experience with number porting, there are three important aspects to understand: the participants, port types, and the actual process. Number porting participants. No party has complete control of the number porting process. As you work through the process, it is helpful to familiarize yourself with the various parties involved. All participants work together to successfully complete port requests. The customer, registered owner of the telephone numbers. A losing carrier, carrier of record prior to the porting process. Winning carrier, carrier of record following the completion of the porting process. Number Portability Administration Center, or NPAC, world's largest number portability registry. Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, agency that regulates interstate and international communications by radio, television, wire, satellite, and cable in all 50 states, Districts of Columbia, and the U.S. territories. Next, we're going to go through the port types and the intervals. Carriers should adhere to standard requirements and recommendations set forth by the FCC for number porting. The process intervals can be affected by rejections and types of port requested. Each carrier has their own service level agreement, or SLA, goals, but they can't be guaranteed in all cases. Typically, the winning carrier will submit the porting request based on the business rules of the losing carrier. Please consult with your carrier for local service request confirmation, LSR acceptance intervals, and firm order commitment, or FOC, response times. Next, we're going to go through the different types of ports. Simple porting. Simple ports are usually considered to be a single telephone number that excludes unbundled network elements, multiple lines, and complex switch translations. The goal of a simple port is to be completed in less than 2 business days. Standard porting. Standard ports are usually considered to be more than one and less than 100 telephone numbers that include a single billing telephone number, or BTN, single address, single losing carrier, and rate center. A typical standard port is completed in 7 business days. Complex porting. Complex ports are not subject to FCC rules and may be subjected to negotiated arrangements between carriers. Complex ports include multiple rate centers, multiple BTNs, and multiple addresses. Also, the losing carrier can identify a port request as a complex port due to special handling of legacy properties. A typical complex port is to be completed in less than 20 business days. Project porting. Project ports are like complex ports, but with more than 100 telephone numbers, a single BTN, single losing carrier, and a single address. Project ports typically require manual handling and are the most time-consuming of all porting types. A typical project port is to be completed in less than 20 business days. Toll-free porting. Toll-free ports are porting of any 800 number. Toll-free porting varies throughout the industry and is not subject to the same mandates by the FCC. A typical toll-free port is to be completed in less than 7 business days. Expedited requests. Expedited requests are initiated by the customer with the goal to shorten the time frame of a specific port request. All expedited requests are considered best efforts and will require cooperation from all carriers. Sometimes these carriers may not support them. The porting process. Now that we have covered the participants, porting types, and intervals associated with number porting, let's look at the porting process in more detail. I will walk through a brief high-level summary of the porting process for a typical port. In this example, the customer is switching to the winning carrier and wants to keep his or her existing telephone number. Customer submits his or her port request to the winning carrier. The winning carrier notifies the losing carrier of the requested port. The losing carrier is asked to validate the customer's information. The losing carrier then confirms the customer's information and notifies the winning carrier. If the order is rejected by the losing carrier, the customer is notified of the rejection. Then the customer corrects the order manually and resubmits the port request to the winning carrier. The winning carrier then notifies NPAC of the requested port. The NPAC creates a pending port and sends a notification to the losing carrier. Optionally, the losing carrier notifies NPAC that it concurs with the port. The winning carrier then notifies NPAC to activate the port. The pending port is activated in the NPAC and broadcast to the industry. And finally, the winning carrier advises the customer of the completed port. Next, we will recover a few of the typical rejections. Port requests may be rejected for several preventable reasons. Understanding the most common rejections and how to avoid them is a good first step in overcoming rejections and getting port orders through as quickly as possible. Some of the more common reasons of rejections include address mismatch. The address submitted in the order does not match the address in the losing carrier's records. Name mismatch. The business name in the order does not match the one in the losing carrier's records. Authorized contact. This is the name of the authorized person who has the authority to make changes on the losing carrier's account. Billing telephone number, or BTN mismatch. The BTN in the order does not match the BTN in the losing carrier's records. A pending order. A pending order can be another port request that was submitted with the same number or BTN. Keep in mind, this can also be adds, moves, or changes on the current losing carrier's account. Carrier freeze. A freeze has been requested on the account that prevents the numbers from being ported. The freeze must be removed for the port process to continue. PIN number. If there is an associated PIN on the losing carrier's account, this number or code will be needed in order to port the numbers. It is recommended that you contact your existing carrier and confirm all the above items. Also, please request a copy of the CSR, or Customer Service Record. This document, in most cases, contains all of the important details required to complete a port. Depending on the carrier, the number porting process can be fast and straightforward or lengthy and complex. When working with Matrix Networks to port your numbers, it is the customer's responsibility to provide all the details required to port your numbers. Once these details have been gathered, the team at Matrix Networks will organize all the information and provide it to the winning carrier on your behalf. Successful number porting requires cooperation from all parties involved and a clear understanding of the process. Thank you for watching today. If you have additional questions, please use the Contact Us link on our website.
Hello there. My name is Ryan Graven. I'm the Vice President of Matrix Networks. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch our video cast. This is the last leg of that journey, and I am here to talk to you about picking a partner. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that we have learned over the years and hopefully give you a checklist of consideration points as you are making this migration. So as the growing list here above me keeps building, one thing that is obvious in today's world is that there are 1,000 different options out there for people looking to migrate their phone solutions to a cloud-based technology. Then we made it even harder and came up with MTalk right up there, our white labeled cloud phone system, something we're very proud of internally, and one of the many options for you as you're making this journey. So my first tip kind of goes back to one of the previous topics about preparing a wish list in advance. This is all about polling the people, right? This is about gaining consensus across your entire organization about what a communication system looks like for you and how it best fits into your environment. I mean, every single one of these guys is going to tell you that they are the best in the business. And to be honest, they are looking to check off all of their boxes to fit you into their solution. Working with Matrix, we like to build that box for you. And we can only do that if we know from you internally and your end users and decision makers what is important, what is driving growth for your organization, what are the key metrics. Once we have an established communication about that, it's much easier for us to look at the different options for vendors out there and pick a solution that's right for you. So get consensus and build your wish list in advance of these conversations. one of the hardest things and the biggest challenges about selecting a phone system vendor these days is paralysis through analysis. There are countless, well, for every vendor that you see above me, there are hundreds of different use cases and testimonials and white papers and matrices and all the different things to bog down your ability to get a clear picture of what's out there. This goes back to understanding what's important to your organization and communicating that with your partner so that we can make a few selections versus getting overwhelmed by all the different information that's out there on the market. Critical in your decision making is to choose a partner whose core competency is telephony. As you know, Matrix has been your telephony partner for some of you decades. And having a partner that understands those elements that go into deploying, managing, and maintaining a phone system is super critical to long-term success. Too many of our competitors are willing to just sell applications without any understanding of how things actually tie into the bigger ecosystem. Having a partner with multiple different options is important. You can tell by just the swath above me, this is just a drop in the bucket. But you want to have an experienced partner who understands each one of these vendors' unique differentiation points and how they all fit into the market. Not every solution is built the same way, and it's important that you know what your options are while not getting bogged down with all that information. Lastly, choosing a partner that understands the network is critical. About 3 years ago, Matrix decided to not just be a telephony shop and to not just sell applications, but to focus on optimizing networks for cloud performance. This is all part of our concierge service, which involves a network readiness assessment. There we go. I knew I'd get it. Network readiness assessment, and ensuring that your firewalls are enterprise grade, your switches are up to date, the connectivity between locations and into your office branches are able to support these applications in advance of deploying anything. Along with that, training and user adoption, dedicated project management. Having a partner that understands these elements is critical for your success. I can't stress it enough. So those are my tips on launching the new phone system, migrating from a prem to cloud-based solution. Matrix Networks looks forward to partnering with you for many years to come. Thank you for the time. Thank you for being a part of this video cast. Cheers.